Welcome to Roll for Insight, the D&D podcast where we dive into the game, the lore, and the internet's favorite arguments. Grab your dice and your character sheet, and let's roll for insight. Hello, welcome to Roll for Insight. In this episode, we're talking about the Barbarian Subclass, Path of the Wild Heart, of the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. Now, this is a path that's available to the Barbarian class at level 3, and the artwork in the Player's Handbook is pretty cool. It's got a nature-centered barbarian here with a glaive, and spectral animals in the background. There's a bear and an owl, and in this episode, we'll cover the description of the subclass from the handbook. We will not be covering the core barbarian traits or the general barbarian class features, though it will be a good idea to listen to the barbarian class episode as we'll be referencing points from it, and we'll go over a breakdown of the subclass features from level 3 to 14. We'll do a general review of the strengths and limitations of the class, we'll pull some opinions from the internet, and then we'll end on some fun fact information about the Path of the Wild Heart. Okay, first topic, the description as written. Path of the Wild Heart, you walk in community with the animal world. Barbarians who follow the Path of the Wild Heart view themselves as kin to animals. These barbarians learn magical means to communicate with animals, and their rage heightens their connection to animals as it fills them with supernatural might. Alright, let's get into the subclass features from levels 3 to 14. So, at level 3, you get access to 2 different subclass features. The first one is Animal Speaker, the second is Rage of the Wilds. So, Animal Speaker, you can cast the Beast Sense and speak with animal spells, but only as rituals. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for them. So you're gaining access to 2 spells as ritual spells. Beast Sense lets you see through a beast's senses for up to 1 hour, and Speak with Animals lets you communicate and influence animals for 10 minutes. So these are pretty solid free utility spells that you can cast as rituals, so there's no resources or spell slots that are spent. It's only the time investment of casting it as a ritual. And this is a pretty big deal for barbarians because normally you have 0 access to magic utility, and this gives you a consistent way to gather information. So you can do things like scout through the eyes and ears of animals, you can interrogate the wildlife for clues in the area, you can track movements in a zone to get the jump on enemy positions, and this immediately pushes the Wildheart into the more exploration-focused barbarian with some ranger-type qualities. Now, at level 3, you also get Rage of the Wilds. Your rage taps into the primal power of animals. Whenever you activate your rage, you gain one of the following options of your choice. Bear. While your rage is active, you have resistance to every damage type except Force, Necrotic, Psychic, and Radiant. Eagle. When you activate your rage, you can take the disengage and dash actions as part of that bonus action. While your rage is active, you can take a bonus action to take both of these actions. And Wolf. While your rage is active, your allies have advantage on attack rolls against any enemy of yours within 5 feet of you. So this is one of the most flexible barbarian features in the game, since you get to choose every time you rage. The bear form is really great because it expands your damage resistance beyond the usual resistances for rage, which is bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, and more resistances is always good. So this makes you extremely durable, especially against the mixed damage types and the elemental creature attacks. Now the eagle form does a lot of things like improves mobility with the dash and the disengage style benefits on the bonus action, and that in itself can give you a lot of battlefield control because it allows you to reposition yourself easily and you can avoid opportunity attacks, or you can chase or disengage your enemies. So it's really great for battlefield movement and survivability here. Then the wolf, that grants advantage to your allies when you're attacking nearby enemies. This is really big for team play because now you're enabling your party's damage and not just your own. So it can be paired up really nicely with other martial classes who benefit from advantage on attacks. So that really shifts the barbarian from the single person damage dealer to an actual party support presence for the group. Now, keep in mind, you're choosing your role every single time you rage, not just at character creation, so that does give lots of flexibility. Now, at level 6, you get access to Aspect of the Wilds. You gain one of the following options of your choice. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can change your choice. Owl. you have dark vision with a range of 60 feet. If you already have dark vision, its range increases by another 60 feet. Panther, you have a climb speed equal to your speed. Or Salmon, you have a swim speed equal to your speed. So these are those passive benefits chosen after each long rest, either improved dark vision, a climb speed, or a swim speed. Now, these are situational, but they're very powerful in the right campaign. For the most part, you'll probably leave this one on either Owl or Panther for the dark vision or the climb speed. But the key point here is that this feature is not about combat, directly anyways. There are absolutely situations where these will help. But more directly, it's about the environmental impacts that you have. Now, if your campaign includes things like the vertical terrain movement, the climbing, the water adventures, or the really darkness-heavy environments, then this ability becomes extremely valuable. And if you don't lean into those mechanics, then it's going to feel pretty minimal. Now, at level 10, you get access to Nature Speaker. You can cast the Commune with Nature spell, but only as a ritual. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for it. So, you get the Commune with Nature spell as a ritual. This is a level 5 spell, which is a pretty big deal, and it has a lot of utility usage depending on your setting. So, this spell allows you to learn information about the terrain, creatures, settlements, water sources, and magical influences like portals. And this works when you're outdoors for up to 3 miles, and if you're underground or in a cave, up to 300 feet. So this turns your barbarian into the kind of nature guru, and pairing this up with your level 3 abilities of beast sense and speak with animals, you really should know everything that's going on in the area almost all the time. So now you're the scout, you're the guide, and you are a huge source of strategic information. So this is one of the most utility-heavy features in any of the barbarian subclasses. Now, the last subclass feature at level 14 is Power of the Wilds. Whenever you activate your rage, you gain one of the following options of your choice. Falcon. While your rage is active, you have a fly speed equal to your speed if you aren't wearing any armor. Lion. When your rage is active, any of your enemies within 5 feet of you have disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you or another barbarian who has this option active. Or Ram. While your rage is active, you can cause a large or smaller creature to have the prone condition when you hit it with a melee attack. So again, each time you rage, you get to choose the Falcon, the Lion, the Ram. And this one is a huge combat upgrade with a lot of real battlefield impact and lots of flexibility since you can change it on the fly. So the first option with Falcon, it gives you a fly speed, and that's huge. It solves one of the biggest weaknesses to barbarians, which is flying enemies and ranged attacks. So this increases your mobility dramatically, and it can help you avoid a ton of obstacles and difficult terrain issues. The Lion imposes disadvantage on attacks against your allies when they're near you, and this turns you into an actual tank here because now you're protecting your team and enemies are incentivized to attack you instead. And then the Ram this one's pretty huge. You knock creatures prone on a hit and there's no save. This is extremely strong. The prone condition gives advantage to melee attackers, so now you're setting up your entire party. And also it's limiting enemy movement because they have to spend movement to get up. And there's no save. You just need to land the hit. And with multiple attacks, you can be affecting multiple enemies every single turn. So, looking at some overall strengths and limitations here, the strengths, it's a flexible subclass choice. You get to choose multiple effects every time you rage. It gives a lot of strong team support too. The Wolf with advantage and the Lion with protection and the Ram with knocking enemies prone can really help out the team. And then it gives you some access to really good exploration tools like the ritual spells, the movement options, the climb speeds, the swim speeds, the dark vision. It solves a lot of the barbarian weaknesses of positioning and lacking utility. So Wildheart is one of the more well-rounded barbarian subclasses, and it's very mobile. It's got lots of battlefield control and some support functionality too. Limitations-wise, it does have lower personal damage compared to the Berserker because you're trading the damage output for the flexibility and the utility features. Some of the features are also going to be very situational. Aspect of the Wilds really depends heavily on the environment and the campaign. If you're not outdoors, if you're not looking for that kind of information, it won't be very useful. And it can be pretty DM dependent because a lot of the ritual spells require opportunities to actually use those features. So, looking over some of the internet discourse around the Path of the Wild Heart, a very common positive take is that this is a really well-designed Barbarian subclass because it gives Barbarians a lot of meaningful choices, and it expands the class beyond just the combat side of things. It feels very flexible, and many players feel that this is what Barbarians should always be like. Now, although it doesn't compete toe-to-toe with the Berserker in damage output, doesn't hit as hard, doesn't have as big burst moments, it does have a lot of consistent value across the combat and the exploration and the utility. So it really gives you a lot of tools in the toolbox. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the common criticism for the Path of the Wild Heart, is that a lot of these features depend on the campaign that you're running. If the combat in your campaign is mostly focused in like the flat areas, and you're never going to have a reason to use the swim speed, the climb speed, the fly, then you're going to lose a little bit of value there. Same with things like if exploration is minimal, then features like the animal speaker, the aspect of the wilds, the nature speaker, you're not going to be using it very much. But the exploration heavy campaigns, this subclass really stands out. So generally speaking, a pretty positive comparison here to the other subclasses. It adds a lot of utility, a lot of roleplay hooks, a lot of environmental interaction. You're not just there to deal damage and soak up damage. You get to be the tracker, the guide. You get to be the connection with the animal world. And that really rounds out the Barbarian class here. So let's end on some fun fact information here. The Wild Heart is a bit of an evolution of the Totem Warrior Barbarian from the 2014 edition. In that edition, you could choose a single animal path like bear, eagle, or wolf, but you were locked into it. Now the 2024 version removes that locked-in restriction and allows you choices on each rage. And that's a real shift in the design philosophy towards flexibility here. The animals themselves are also inspired by a lot of real-world symbolism. You've got the bear, which can symbolize things like strength, endurance, sometimes resurrection because of the hibernation. The eagle and falcon can represent vision and freedom. They can be related to death and death-adjacent deities. The wolf symbolizes pack tactics and teamwork, sometimes intelligence, loyalty, success. The lion symbolizes dominance and protection. It's often connected with the sun and with royalty. And the ram symbolizes force and impact, and sometimes it's tied to sacrifice and achievement. So each one sort of reinforces a different aspect of the barbarian fantasy, and this can be a really fun way to roleplay your barbarian as well. Well, that's it for this session of Roll for Insight. Thanks for listening, and thank you to all our supporters on patreon.com/rollforinsightpodcast. And we will see you next time.